All right, well, I'm not exactly sure where I want to start. I'm sitting along a stretch of North Atlantic coastline that I know very, very well. The first time I ever came here, I think I was 3 years old, 4 at the oldest. And my parents had to carry my brother and I along this stretch of rugged coastline you can see over my shoulder, because there were no roads that actually got to this place. And I've been coming back ever since. And it can be difficult to describe the importance of a place. But maybe it begins with the fact that we've been coming here for decades. And that when we aren't here, we're thinking about it and are planning our return. So in that sense, the place really defines us, because no matter where we are, part of us is always here or longing to be here. Also, it's a place where we have always come to make images. And, you know, as I sit here, I'm thinking about what it means to create images of the same place that one returns to again and again. And obviously, on a basic level, all we're doing is chronicling our visits, right? Like anyone would do. We're capturing our time in this place with the people that matter to us. But patterns do emerge. And I would argue that this place has something of a visual essence. We are always looking out past the point and the islands to the Gulf of Maine, to where the water meets the sky. It really defines the visual experience of being here. The eye is always drawn in that direction. So as we create images, we end up positioning ourselves within this essence. And, you know, in a similar way to the way my dad saw my brother and I 50 years ago, I see my own children now. Another element of this landscape that you may have already noticed is that it's a landscape of really enticing textures. From the soft ground underfoot with grasses, moss, and fungi, to the Spanish moss dangling from the branches, spiderwebs catching dewdrops, the constantly changing waters of the bay, the rocks on the beach, we are immersed in textures here. And I did want to capture something of this on this trip. The way as a kid, I was always drawn into the details of the place while also being aware of the larger context. I mean, we spent hours watching the water swirling around the rocks and doing things like moving seaweed around, trying to find creatures in the tidal pools. And on this trip, I was able to capture one image that I think speaks to that experience of being focused on the tiny, fleeting details of the place, while also understanding how they fit into the broader landscape. Some of the locals say that this is a place where God comes to rest, and I love that idea. But you would think that someplace so remote feeling and so tranquil would have very slow time. But the opposite is the case, that time passes faster here than anywhere I have ever been. I think it's because we come here without an agenda. We don't have the typical distractions of the television, the computers, radios, and even until this past year, cell phones weren't of much use. So really, with most of the distractions gone, we become aware of how everything in this landscape is constantly changing. There's the movement of the extreme tides, which means that every couple of minutes you're aware that the water is in a different place. There's also the movement of the sun as it sweeps across the bay. And then there's the changing of the clouds, and of course the light, this magnificent light. And it's all really a giant clock whose movements you can't ignore. And it ends up, it just reminds us that the time is short, that every day feels fleeting. And I think this must drive our image making. We are trying to catch these changes that slip by so quickly, but that are far too numerous to appreciate or even to remember. And by taking pictures, and a lot of pictures, it's one way we hold on to the place moment by moment. Its light, its textures, its life, its color, and most importantly, ourselves and how we were in these moments. We try to hold on to it all because this fast time heightens our awareness of the individuality of every moment. And, we can look back and realize that we were occupying them so completely without distractions. And then they're gone. And the people that we used to be are gone too. But ultimately, the place persists. And while it might not be right to say that it waits for us, the sun, the tide, the wind, the clouds, the beaches, the light, it'll all be here to greet our future selves.